I woke up and touched my head. My hair was gone. Every single strand. Shaved off like I was nobody. And pinned to my pillow was a note that made my blood turn to ice. Congratulations. You finally have a haircut that matches your age. Today was my son's wedding day. If you're loving this story, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. My name is Margaret Shaw. I'm 52 years old, and until this morning, I was a powerful woman. I built buildings that touched the sky. I owned half the real estate in Boston. People respected me. But right now, lying in my bed with my head burning and smooth as an egg, I felt like the smallest person in the world. I jumped out of bed and ran to the bathroom. My legs shook. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back had a red, shiny head. No hair. Nothing. Just raw skin that burned like fire. I could still smell the sharp chemical smell of whatever they used to do this to me. My scalp felt like someone had rubbed it with sandpaper. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to collapse on the floor and disappear. But I didn't. Because I knew exactly who did this to me. Victoria. My future daughter-in-law. I walked back to my bedroom slowly, each step feeling heavy. On my nightstand sat a fancy, white envelope. The handwriting on it was perfect, too perfect, like someone practiced it 100 times. It said, "Have a great day at MY wedding," with a little heart drawn at the end. When I picked it up, I smelled expensive perfume. The same perfume Victoria wore every single day. The same perfume that made my nose itch whenever she hugged me with her fake smile. My hands started shaking. Not from fear. From anger. I looked at my safe in the corner of the room. It was still open from last night. Inside was another envelope, a much more important one. Inside that envelope were papers that would give Victoria and my son David $22 million. $22 million. That was my wedding gift to them. Money I worked my whole life to earn. Money I saved by waking up at 5 in the morning every day. Money I earned by reading boring contracts until midnight. Money that represented everything I built after my husband died and left me alone with a 12-year-old boy. I had planned to give them this money because I loved my son, because I wanted him to be happy, because I thought it would bring us closer together as a family.
But now?
Now, staring at that envelope with my bald head burning, I felt something change inside me. That money was never leaving this safe. I walked over, picked up the envelope, and held it in my hands. The paper felt different now. Before, it felt like love. Now it felt like a weapon. A weapon someone tried to use against me. I put the envelope back in the safe, closed the heavy door, and turned the lock. The metal made a solid click that echoed in the quiet room. That click felt like the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. Then I picked up my phone and called James Parker, my lawyer. He's helped me with my business for 20 years. He answered after 2 rings. "Margaret. Good morning. Are you ready to sign the transfer papers? I have everything prepared just like you asked." I took a deep breath. My voice came out steady and cold. "James, stop everything. Don't transfer a single penny. Not $1 moves today." Silence. Then, "Is something wrong?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Something is very wrong. I need you to come to my house tonight after the wedding. We're going to rewrite my entire will." "Margaret, what happened?" I closed my eyes. "I woke up, James. That's what happened. I finally woke up." I hung up the phone and sat down on the edge of my bed. My whole body was shaking, but not from fear anymore. I felt something burning in my chest. Something powerful. Victoria thought she could break me. She thought shaving my head would make me too embarrassed to show up at the wedding. She thought I would hide in my room and cry while she married my son and took everything I worked for. She was wrong. I stood up and walked to my closet. I pulled out a beautiful navy blue dress, the one I bought myself after finishing my biggest business deal. I remembered how proud I felt that day, how strong I felt. I would need that strength today. The phone rang again. This time it was Rosa, the woman who's cut my hair for 20 years. My throat felt tight, but I kept my voice calm. Rosa, I need you right now. Bring your best wig. The most beautiful one you have. Nobody can know what happened. Rosa is smart. She didn't ask questions. She just whispered, I'll be there in 20 minutes. While I waited, I sat by the window and watched snow falling outside. White flakes covered everything, the trees, the paths, the whole yard. It looked peaceful, but I didn't feel peaceful at all. I thought about my life. How I became a widow at 32. How my husband Richard died suddenly, leaving me alone with young David. How I promised my son would never feel scared or hungry. How I worked harder than any man I knew to keep that promise. I built apartment buildings, then office towers, then shopping centers. Every brick, every contract, every deal was soaked in my sweat and tears. I did it all for David. And now his future wife thought she could humiliate me and steal everything? Not today. The doorbell rang. I let Rosa in. She carried a long black box. When she saw my head, her eyes went wide and she covered her mouth. Oh my God, Margaret. Don't, I said firmly. Don't ask questions. Just help me look strong today. It took an hour, but Rosa fitted a beautiful silver gray wig on my head. It looked and moved like real hair. When she held up the mirror, I almost gasped. The woman looking back at me wasn't broken. She was powerful. She had sharp eyes and a strong jaw. She looked like someone you don't mess with. I recognized her. That was Margaret Shaw, the woman who never accepts defeat. I paid Rosa extra, thanked her, and walked her to the door. When I was alone again, I did something important. I put a small voice recorder in my purse. Something told me I would need proof today. Words alone wouldn't be enough. I looked at the clock. 3 hours until the wedding ceremony. 3 hours to prepare for battle. Because this wasn't just a wedding anymore. This was war. And I was going to win. I put on my gray wool coat and wrapped a soft scarf around my neck. David gave me that scarf 10 years ago for my birthday. Back then he was different. He was my boy. Now, that memory felt like a knife in my heart. I looked at myself one more time in the mirror. The wig looked perfect. Nobody would know. I looked like the Margaret Shaw everyone knew, strong, elegant, powerful. Son, I whispered to my reflection, today you'll learn that you picked the wrong woman to betray. I walked outside into the freezing Boston morning. Cold wind slapped my face, but I didn't flinch. I pulled my collar up and got into my car. My driver looked at me in the mirror, about to say something. I shook my head. Not today. I need quiet. As we drove through the snowy streets, I watched people through the window. Couples holding hands. Families laughing together. Children playing in the snow. I wondered how many of them had been stabbed in the back by the people they loved most. How many mothers had given everything to their children, only to be thrown away like garbage. I wasn't just fighting for myself today. I was fighting for every mother who'd been used and forgotten. The car stopped at the church gates. St. Andrew's Church, one of the oldest and most beautiful churches in Boston. I pressed my hand to my chest and felt something strange. I wasn't nervous anymore. I felt calm, strong, ready. I opened the car door, stepped out into the snow, and smiled. Not a fake smile, a real smile. A smile that said, I'm Margaret Shaw, and you can't break me. Inside the church, I sat on a cold wooden bench near the back. The staff rushed around, arranging white flowers and lighting tall candles. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Like a beautiful lie. As I sat there, memories flooded my mind. Memories I'd buried deep for years because they hurt too much. I remembered the day everything changed. The day I was 32 years old and someone handed me a piece of paper that said my husband was dead. Richard. My sweet Richard. He died from a sudden heart attack while driving home from work. 1 minute we were talking on the phone about expanding our small business. The next minute, I was standing in a hospital hallway, covering my face with my hands, unable to breathe. David was only 12 years old. He came running down the hospital corridor in his school uniform, his face full of confusion. "Mom, where's Dad? Why are you crying? Where's Dad?" I had no answer. I just pulled him close and held him tight while my whole world fell apart. That night, I made a promise. A promise that changed everything. I whispered into David's hair, "You will never go hungry. You will never be scared. I will give you everything." And I kept that promise. For 20 years, I kept it. We went back to our tiny house outside Boston. That house had 2 small bedrooms, a kitchen with a broken stove, and walls so thin you could hear the neighbors arguing. We had almost no money. Richard's life insurance barely covered the funeral. I remember sitting in an old armchair that night, watching David sleep on the couch. He looked so small, so fragile. His father's death had stolen the light from his eyes. I made another promise that night. I will build something. I will create a life where you never feel this pain again. The next morning I started. I took the little money we had and bought a rundown apartment building. It was falling apart. The roof leaked. The walls had holes. But it was mine. I worked like a machine. I woke up at 5 every morning. I put on old jeans and work boots and went to that building. I painted walls. I fixed pipes. I cleaned up trash. My hands got covered in blisters. My back ached every night. But slowly, that building became beautiful. I rented out the apartments. The money I earned, I saved every penny. I didn't buy new clothes. I didn't go to restaurants. I didn't take vacations. Every dollar went into the next building. And the next. And the next. David grew up watching me work. He saw me leave before sunrise and come home after dark. He saw me reading thick contracts at the kitchen table, my eyes so tired I could barely see. "Mom, why do you work so hard?" he asked me once when he was 16. I looked at him and smiled. "Because I want you to have the best life possible, sweetheart. Everything I do is for you." He hugged me that day. "You're the strongest person I know, Mom." That memory made my heart break now, sitting in this church. Because somewhere along the way, my strong, loving boy turned into someone I didn't recognize. It started when he met Victoria 3 years ago at a business party. She was 28, beautiful, and charming. She had perfect blonde hair, perfect white teeth, and a perfect smile that never reached her eyes. From the first moment I met her, something felt wrong. The way she looked at my house. The way she asked questions about my business. The way she touched David's arm and whispered in his ear. But David was in love. His eyes lit up whenever she walked into a room. He laughed at all her jokes. He bought her expensive gifts. "Mom, I think she's the one," he told me 6 months after they met. "I want to marry her." My stomach twisted, but I smiled. "If she makes you happy, then I'm happy." That was a lie. But what could I do? He was my son. My only child. I couldn't lose him. So, I welcomed Victoria into our family. I invited her to dinners. I asked about her day. I tried to love her because David loved her. But Victoria never warmed up to me. She was always polite but cold, like I was an obstacle she had to deal with. During family dinners, she would check her phone while I talked. When I offered advice, she would smile and ignore it. Then, slowly, David started changing. He stopped calling me every day. He stopped visiting on Sundays. When I asked if something was wrong, he said, "I'm just busy, Mom. Victoria and I have our own life now." Our own life. Those words hurt more than he knew. The wedding planning was even worse. Victoria didn't ask my opinion about anything. She picked the church without telling me. She chose the flowers, the music, the food, all without asking what I thought. When I tried to help, she said sweetly, "Oh, Margaret, you've done so much already. Just relax and enjoy being the mother of the groom." But her eyes said something different. Her eyes said, "Stay out of my way." Still, I tried. I tried so hard. Because I loved David more than my own life. 2 months ago, I decided to give them the wedding gift. $22 million. Enough money to buy a mansion, start a business, live like royalty. I thought maybe, just maybe, this gift would show Victoria that I accepted her. that I wanted her to be happy, that I wasn't her enemy. I was so wrong. A voice snapped me back to the present. "Excuse me, are you all right?" I looked up. An elderly woman in a purple dress smiled at me kindly. I realized tears were running down my face. "Yes," I said quickly, wiping my eyes. "Just emotional. My son is getting married today." She patted my hand. "It's hard to let them go, isn't it?" If only she knew. I wasn't letting him go. He was being stolen from me. I checked my watch. 1 hour until the ceremony. Guests were starting to arrive. I saw people I knew from business, friends of David's, Victoria's giggling bridesmaids in pink dresses. And then I saw her. Victoria walked in through the side door, surrounded by her friends. She wore a white silk robe over her wedding dress. Her blonde hair was curled perfectly. She looked like a princess. But when her eyes met mine across the church, I saw something evil flash in them. Just for a second, a tiny smile played at her lips. She knew I was here. She probably thought I would hide at home, too ashamed to show my face after what she did. But here I was, wig in place, head held high. Her smile disappeared. She looked confused, almost angry. "Good." I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the front of the church where Mother sat. Each step felt like a victory. Each step said, "You didn't break me." As I passed Victoria, I stopped, looked her straight in the eyes, and smiled. "Beautiful day for a wedding," I said softly. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I kept walking, my heart pounding with satisfaction. The battle had begun, and I was winning. The church filled with people. Soft music played from the organ. Everyone wore fancy clothes and big smiles. They had no idea what was really happening. I sat in the front row, right where the groom's mother should sit. My hand rested on my purse where the voice recorder waited silently. All I needed was one moment, one slip, one confession. The ceremony began. David walked down the aisle in a sharp black suit. My heart ached when I saw him. He looked so handsome, so grown up. For a second, I saw him as a little boy again, holding my hand on his first day of school. But then Victoria appeared at the back of the church, and everything changed. She walked down the aisle in a stunning white dress, holding her father's arm. Everyone gasped at how beautiful she looked. But all I could see was the monster underneath. The woman who snuck into my bedroom and shaved my head while I slept. When she passed my row, our eyes locked again. This time, she smirked. A tiny, mean smile that said, "I won." "Not yet, you haven't," I thought. The priest began talking about love, commitment, and family. Each word felt like a joke. Victoria held David's hands and gazed at him with fake tears in her eyes. My son looked at her like she was his whole world. It made me sick. "If anyone objects to this marriage," the priest said, "speak now or forever hold your peace." The church went silent. Everyone held their breath. Part of me wanted to stand up and scream the truth. But I stayed quiet, because I had a better plan. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Everyone clapped. David kissed Victoria. The organ played loud, happy music. People cheered. I clapped too, even though each clap felt like a lie. The reception was held at the Grand Harbor Hotel, the fanciest place in Boston. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White roses covered every table. A band played jazz music while waiters served champagne. I sat at the family table, smiling politely while relatives congratulated David and Victoria. My face hurt from fake smiling. Victoria's friends surrounded her, giggling and taking pictures. I watched her carefully, waiting for my moment. Then I heard it. Victoria was standing near the bathroom hallway with her best friend, Chelsea. They didn't see me sitting on the other side of the tall flower arrangement. They thought they were alone. I quietly reached into my purse and pressed record on my voice recorder. "Oh my God, Victoria. You actually did it," Chelsea whispered, laughing. "You shaved her head." Victoria laughed too, a mean, cruel laugh. She looked so pathetic this morning. I wanted her to feel as ugly as she really is. My hands clenched into fists under the table, but I didn't move. Chelsea gasped. What if she finds out it was you? Victoria shrugged. So what? What's she going to do? David will never believe her over me. He's completely wrapped around my finger. Besides, after we get that $22 million, we can go anywhere we want. We can cut her out completely. 22 million? Chelsea's voice went high with excitement. Oh my God. Yep, Victoria said proudly. That old woman worked her whole life building her little empire, and now it's all going to be mine. David doesn't even realize I'm only marrying him for the money. He's so desperate for love that he'll believe anything I say. My heart shattered into a million pieces. Not for me. For David. You're brilliant, Chelsea giggled. But what if Margaret doesn't give you the money? Victoria's voice turned cold. She will. She's so desperate to keep David in her life that she'll do anything. And once we have the money, I'll slowly turn David against her completely. She'll die alone while we live in luxury. I heard enough. I pressed stop on the recorder and stood up. My legs felt weak, but my mind was clear. Crystal clear. If this story is giving you chills, smash that like button right now. Share this with everyone who needs to hear it, and subscribe because the ending is about to blow your mind. I walked straight to the DJ booth and whispered something in his ear. He looked surprised but nodded. The music stopped. Everyone turned to look. I took the microphone, and my voice echoed through the entire ballroom. Good evening, everyone. I'm Margaret Shaw, mother of the groom. I'd like to say a few words. David smiled at me nervously. Victoria's face went pale. When my husband died 20 years ago, I began, my voice steady. I was left with nothing but a 12-year-old son and a broken heart. But I made a promise. I promised David would have everything. A good life. A safe home. Every opportunity. People nodded, smiling. They thought this was a sweet speech. I worked 18-hour days. I built buildings with my own hands. I sacrificed everything so my son could have a better future. And today, I plan to give David and Victoria $22 million as a wedding gift. Gasps filled the room. Victoria's eyes went wide. But this morning, I continued, my voice getting stronger. I woke up with my head completely shaved. Someone broke into my bedroom while I slept and humiliated me on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. More gasps. People started whispering. David stood up, his face confused. Mom, what are you talking about? I slowly removed my wig. The entire room gasped. Some people screamed. David's face went white. My bare, red scalp shined under the chandelier lights. I'd never felt more exposed and more powerful at the same time. Someone did this to me, I said clearly. And they left me a note that said, Congratulations, you finally have a haircut that matches your age. Victoria started shaking. She tried to back away, but people blocked her path. But the interesting thing, I continued, holding up my phone where I'd transferred the recording, is that I just recorded a conversation between the bride and her friend. Would everyone like to hear it? No, Victoria screamed. You're lying. You're a bitter old woman who can't let go of her son. But I pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear. I wanted her to feel as ugly as she really is. David's completely wrapped around my finger. I'm only marrying him for the money. She'll die alone while we live in luxury. The room exploded. People started yelling. David stumbled backward like someone had punched him. His face showed horror, betrayal, pain, all at once. Victoria, he whispered, tell me this isn't true. Please. But Victoria couldn't speak. Tears ran down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. Not tears of sadness. Tears of being caught. You used me? David's voice broke. You never loved me? Victoria tried to grab his arm, but he pulled away like she was poison. David, wait. I can explain. She's manipulating you. Victoria sobbed. But David looked at me. Really looked at me. And for the first time in 3 years, I saw my son again. The boy who used to tell me I was the strongest person he knew. Mom, he whispered, touching my bare head gently. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I pulled him into a hug, and we both cried. 20 years of love, pain, sacrifice, and betrayal poured out in that moment. Victoria's father grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the exit. We're leaving. Now. Victoria screamed and cried, but nobody cared. Guests moved away from her like she had a disease. Her friends pretended they didn't know her. Security escorted her out. The beautiful bride, now revealed as a monster, disappeared through the doors. 3 months later, I sat in my office, looking out at the Boston skyline. The buildings I built stood tall and strong just like me. David came in carrying 2 cups of coffee. He'd moved back home after the wedding disaster. We were rebuilding our relationship slowly and carefully. The annulment papers came through, he said quietly. It's official. The marriage never existed. I nodded. Good. Mom, I need to say something. David sat down across from me. I was blind. I let Victoria manipulate me. I ignored you. I took you for granted. You gave me everything, and I treated you like you didn't matter. I reached across and held his hand. You were in love. Love makes us do foolish things. But I should have protected you, he said, tears in his eyes. You're my mother. You built all of this for me. And I let someone hurt you in the worst way possible. David listened to me. I squeezed his hand. Yes, you made mistakes. But you're here now. You opened your eyes. That's what matters. He hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. I smiled, really smiled for the first time in months. I know you will. Later that evening, I went to my bedroom and opened the safe. The envelope with the $22 million sat inside, exactly where I'd left it. But I'd made a new decision. That money wouldn't go to David and some gold digger wife. It would go into a foundation. A foundation to help single mothers build businesses. To help women who'd been betrayed and broken rebuild their lives. I would call it the Richard Shaw Foundation after my husband. And every woman who received help would know that they were strong enough to rise again. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was growing back, soft and silver. I decided not to dye it anymore. These gray hairs represented survival, strength, victory. I was Margaret Shaw. I woke up bald on my son's wedding day. My daughter-in-law tried to destroy me. But she learned the hardest lesson of her life. You can shave a woman's head, but you can never shave her power. Did this story move you? Hit that like button. Share it with every mother, every daughter, every person who's ever been betrayed. And subscribe for more incredible true stories that will shake you to your core. Drop a comment telling me, what would you have done in Margaret's situation? Let's talk in the comments below.